We know how crucial it is to draft in the National Football League, but even more so drafting in the first round, potentially taking somebody that is going to be a cornerstone of your franchise or maybe even just changed your franchise. But today, we are going to be looking at the draft picks that didn't go these franchises' way. We're going to talk about the 15 worst draft picks since 2020. And yes, you could talk about some draft picks that were in 2016, 2017 that have been catastrophically poor for these teams on their return on investment. But we're going to just talk about some trades that have happened over the last few years. And I just threw an arbitrary benchmark at the year 2020. So the 2020 draft all the way up to current day. We're not going to talk about anything from the 2025 draft, obviously way too early. And there's maybe one pick from the 2024 draft class that we will end up talking about. And a bad draft pick can come in different ways, right? It could just be the player did not work out in the NFL whatsoever, or maybe you could have just taken somebody at a different position that went a pick or two later that was miles better in the NFL. And yeah, you just whiffed on the evaluation of this specific player. If you agree or disagree with any of these, let me know down below in the comments. Drop a thumbs up if you guys want to see me do this. But for the 15 best draft picks in the NFL currently, and let's get into it. So I think I'm going to throw them on the thumbnail. So you probably already knew who I was going to talk about. We're going to talk about Zach Wilson, the second overall pick from the 2021 NFL draft. This was supposed to be a new era of Jets football. It didn't work out for the Jets with the third overall pick in the 2018 draft when they selected Sam Darnold. We know today that Sam Darnold could turn into a very good quarterback in the NFL, but the Jets weren't patient. There was apparently an offer, a first rounder, to trade Sam Darnold earlier in that offseason. They eventually settled on a second round pick from the Carolina Panthers. Darnold did not work out in Carolina whatsoever. He helped out his development playing under Shanahan as a backup in San Francisco. We know it worked out in Minnesota, and it's currently working out in Seattle. And Zach Wilson was supposed to be the Sam Darnold replacement. And what they did in the 2022 draft, hitting on Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, Breece Hall, Jermaine Johnson, like these were supposed to be pieces around Zach Wilson going forward. Elijah Vera Tucker, Mekhi Becton, who we could probably bring up in this video. I don't think he's going to make it, but he could definitely earn an honorable mention. Zach Wilson, though, set this franchise back. Wilson ended up just appearing in 3 years in New York. He was only supposed to start 2 of those years, and they gave up on him for Aaron Rodgers. In 2021, as a rookie, he went 3-10 as a starter, 9 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, as the Jets ended up going 4-13 in their first year under Robert Saleh, because Adam Gase was the previous head coach, and he just tanked Sam Darnold's development. In year 2, they ended up going 7-10 that season, a little bit better, taking steps in the right direction. They had that great rookie class I just talked about with Sauce, Breece, and Garrett Wilson. And then Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles during week 1 of the 2023 NFL season. Zach Wilson, as a starter that year, ended up going 4-7. He threw for 8 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He didn't really play the best competition at BYU. He balled out in a COVID year in the Mountain West, where this was just a completely different beast from the NFL level. Now, there could have been maybe a little bit worse of a pick that they could have ended up making, but what if they kept Sam Darnold? And what if they took Penei Sewell, or they took Jamar Chase, or they took a Micah Parsons, somebody like that at number 2 to build around Sam Darnold? Or imagine they traded down and they took that 49ers offer that the Miami Dolphins ended up taking. And Zach Wilson has been bouncing around a little bit. He's been a backup in Denver, now currently a backup in Miami for the Dolphins. I don't know if he's ever going to be a starting quarterback in this league again, and he's definitely a big bust for the number 2 overall pick. And we're still trying to figure out who the next franchise quarterback is going to be for the Jets, because it wasn't Darnold, it wasn't Wilson, it wasn't Aaron Rodgers, it's not going to be Justin Fields. We're still trying to figure things out. Maybe it's a Mendoza or a Ty Simpson. Maybe it's somebody in 2027. But we've been doing the same old story with the Jets for how many years now? You know what? I'm on the topic of the 2021 draft. Let's talk about the number 3 overall pick from this draft, Trey Lance to the San Francisco 49ers. And when you're talking about all things considered, maybe this is the worst draft pick that we're going to mention in this video, just because the San Francisco 49ers gave up a haul of draft capital to move from number 12 to number 3. They essentially traded 3 first-round picks to the Miami Dolphins, including that 12th overall pick. The Dolphins ended up trading back up to get Jalen Waddle. The Dolphins used one of those first-round picks to go out and get Bradley Chubb, and they used another one of those to go out and get Tyreek Hill. So yeah, you're talking about Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and Bradley Chubb as a return for the number 3 overall pick. That was really good for Miami, as San Francisco had so many different storylines leading up to the 2021 NFL draft. I read a book by Michael Silver called The Why Is Everything. He talks about all these different head coaches that came from that Washington Redskins team in the early 2010s with Shanahan, McDaniel, Raheem Morris, Matt LaFleur, and Sean McVay. And he talks about a lot in that book that this was a pivotal point for John Lynch, the general manager, and Kyle Shanahan, the coach, because they were not on good terms at the moment with Jimmy Garoppolo. We all know that they wanted Kirk Cousins. That didn't end up happening. They ended up getting Jimmy Garoppolo. And at this time, Kyle Shanahan really wanted Mac Jones with the 3rd overall pick. And when you look at Trey Lance's career, you look at Mac Jones' career, Shanahan was technically right. Who knows what Mac Jones would be today if he was coached by Kyle Shanahan, an offensive guru, rather than Belichick in New England on his final days out as an NFL head coach. Trey Lance had a very small sample size at North Dakota State. He also didn't play in the COVID year as well, and currently he now only has 5 starts in his NFL career. He only started 4 games for the San Francisco 49ers as a 3rd overall pick. That is mind-blowing. He started 1 game with the Dallas Cowboys. He's currently Justin Herbert's backup in Los Angeles. Thank God this team selected Brock Purdy with the last pick in the 2022 NFL draft a year later, because if not, Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, they might not be here in San Francisco today if they didn't make that selection. I'm sure we'll talk about that one in the 15 best draft pick video. But yeah, Trey Lance, for what they gave up and his production in San Francisco, this also could rival Zach Wilson as maybe the worst pick that we're going to talk about here today. This one actually might be the worst pick. Let's go to the 2022 NFL draft. I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I just actually watched them this weekend in Pittsburgh to go up against the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm glad that they won this game, but they made a dreadful pick on the night of the 2022 NFL draft. This team was quarterback desperate, and they selected Kenny Pickett with the 20th overall pick out of Pittsburgh. Kenny Pickett was a fine college quarterback at Pitt. I have no idea if he didn't fake slide or if he didn't go to the college right down the road from Acrisure Stadium, at the time Heinz Field. Would they have selected Kenny Pickett? We may never know, but this team was trying to find its next quarterback after Ben Roethlisberger. They're still trying to find their franchise quarterback after Big Ben. It's been a little bit of Mason Rudolph, a little bit of Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, and Kenny Pickett for a few years, where Pickett actually didn't have a bad record. He ended up going about 14-10 as the Steelers starter. The Steelers actually made it to the playoffs in 2023, but he didn't even play that game. He was injured. They would go on to move on from him in the 2023 offseason, sending him to the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Steelers would go out and sign Russ and trade for Justin Fields. And yes, Kenny Pickett was dealt a terrible offensive coordinator in Matt Canada, not a forward-thinking head coach anymore in Mike Tomlin, who is not willing to adjust and just try to change his style of thinking in the modern NFL. We've known that since Ben Roethlisberger retired. He never really had great weapons, a little bit of a younger George Pickens. It was Deontay Johnson. Pat Freiermuth was maybe his top target at one point as well. Najee Harris was his running back, and the offensive line wasn't great either. So yeah, Kenny Pickett wasn't dealt the best hand, but this was not the right move for the Steelers, in which was a kind of loaded 2022 draft in terms of non-quarterback prospects, because the Steelers have been looking for a CB1 forever now. Honestly, like in my lifetime, Ike Taylor's been great. Joe Hayden's been great, but these guys were never like top tier corners when they were in Pittsburgh, in my opinion. Trent McDuffie went 1 pick later to the Kansas City Chiefs. Don't take a quarterback just to take one. Matt Corral, Sam Howell, Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett. This was a terrible quarterback class outside of the guy that ended up going with the last pick in the draft, the aforementioned Brock Purdy. We're going to talk about our first non-quarterback player here. This one may be controversial. I'm going to talk about Travon Walker to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, Travon Walker is a good player in the NFL. He is far from a bust in the NFL. He had 10 sacks in 2023, 10.5 sacks in 2024. Is he good enough, though, to be the #1 overall pick? I don't think so. I know it was a volatile 2022 draft. There wasn't like a clear-cut #1 quarterback prospect. We talked about how bad that QB class was. Well, you know who was 1 pick later? That's also an edge rusher. Aiden Hutchinson of the Detroit Lions, who is, in my opinion, a lot better than Travon Walker. They play the same position. At the time, even me, who is nowhere even close to an NFL front office, who is nowhere close to a draft expert, thought they should have taken Aiden Hutchinson. So why did I know the right decision? Why did millions of NFL fans know the right decision to make at #1 in taking Aiden Hutchinson, and they still took Travon Walker? Shout out to Trent Baalke. I don't know what he was doing during his final years in Jacksonville, because when you're talking about the 5 best edge rushers in the NFL, you're talking about Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, maybe still TJ Watt, Nick Bonito, and you're talking about Aiden Hutchinson in that conversation. In my opinion, Travon Walker is not a top 10 edge rusher. It was such an easy pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars to make. Maybe even trading down. I don't know if there were any offers at the time, but I think they whiffed on this one for sure. And it's making this list. You can let me know if that's a hot take or not. All right, let's go back to the oldest draft class. We'll talk about the 2020 NFL draft. This one was a weird one, right? It was the first virtual draft because of COVID going on. And the same reason why Travon Walker made this video is going to be the same reason why Tua Tagovailoa is also making this video. Joe Burrow went #1. He was the consensus 1-1 in that draft, given the season he just had at LSU. So there were 2 other quarterbacks that were going to go in the top 10. Tua, who the Dolphins took at 5, and Justin Herbert, who the Chargers took at 6. If you're building out a franchise, if you were just taking a list of quarterbacks that you want to start your franchise with today, Herbert is making everybody's top 5 or top 7. Tua's probably not even making anybody's top 15 at the moment, and this could have been the franchise quarterback in Miami going forward. They tanked for Tua that year. Poor Brian Flores trying to coach that 2020 Dolphins team. And Tua, although he's shown flashes in this league with Mike McDaniel as his head coach in 2022 and in 2023, where he led the NFL in passing yards, 4,624 yards. The Dolphins almost won the division that year. They had a choke towards the end of the year. They ended up falling out into the wild card picture, and then they had to go on the road to Arrowhead, and they ended up losing Tua's only playoff game he has started in. But he got top 10 MVP votes in 2023. Tua's not been a terrible quarterback in this league for the 5th overall pick. There have been far worse top 10 quarterbacks in this league. He's no Zach Wilson. He's no Trey Lance. But it makes the specific draft pick look worse when Justin Herbert, who was a lot better than Tua in my opinion, went one pick later. So clearly they messed up the evaluation. Justin Herbert has multiple top 10 MVP finishes. He has a rookie of the year under his belt where he threw for 4,336 yards. He has a 5,000 yard season under his belt. And this one is also the what if game as well, right? Tua suffered all those head injuries. Maybe that has affected his development in the National Football League, but that's pretty much what we're doing today. This is hindsight, and we're going to talk about the 15 worst draft picks in the NFL right now. I'm sure the Dolphins wish they had Justin Herbert right now than Tua. We're going to stay on the topic of the 2020 NFL draft. We're going to talk about the 12th overall pick, the Las Vegas Raiders, who were on a streak, man, of just making terrible draft picks because we have their first round pick from a year later I'll talk about next. They selected Henry Ruggs out of Alabama with the 12th overall pick in a same wide receiver draft where, you know what, Jerry Jeudy went 15. You're lucky, Denver, because maybe I would talk about that pick if this one didn't look a little bit worse. But CeeDee Lamb went 17 and Justin Jefferson went 22. Heck, even Brandon Ayuk went 25. And it's not Vegas's fault what happened with Henry Ruggs off the field, right? But when you were watching Henry Ruggs compared to CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson, who have turned into top 5, and at one point for Justin Jefferson, you may even say the best receiver in the NFL today, it's inexcusable to take Henry Ruggs, who wasn't really even looked at as the better Alabama receiver. It was always Jeudy kind of over Henry Ruggs, but his blazing speed and his deep threat ability, I guess, just was intriguing to Vegas, who just could not make a good draft pick at the time. He ended up having 26 catches for 452 yards in his rookie season, and then in his second year, he only played 7 games. He had 470 yards. He was actually averaging 67 yards per game, and then we know what happened off the field. He's currently in jail right now. Like I said, that's not Vegas's fault, but you could have taken CeeDee Lamb, you could have taken Justin Jefferson, and you took Henry Ruggs. So that's going to make this video. And we're going to talk about what they did during the 2021 NFL draft. A lot of people did not like this pick at the time, where they selected Alex Leatherwood, the offensive lineman out of Alabama, an extremely raw offensive lineman at that as well. And when you look at this draft class, it was loaded with offensive lineman talent. So they were never going to get Penei Sewell, who ended up going number 7 to the Detroit Lions. But then you had Rashawn Slater go 13, Elijah Vera Tucker go 14. You had Christian Darrisaw, who was on the board. Everybody was screaming at Vegas to make this pick, take Darrisaw. And they took maybe the toolsy guy with high upside in Alex Leatherwood, who ended up being out of the league a year and a half later. He spent just 17 games for the Raiders, played every single game in 2021, was awful, and they ended up releasing their first round pick a year later. How crazy is that? He ended up getting signed by the Chicago Bears in 2022, appeared in 4 games, and has not appeared in the NFL since. He's not on a practice squad today. This is actually one of the worst draft picks in general based off production that we could talk about here, because at least Trey Lance or Zach Wilson are still giving you solid backup quarterback reps that can come in and maybe help you out if somebody gets hurt. Leatherwood's not even on a team today. This was a complete whiff by the Las Vegas Raiders, and we're not even done talking about them yet. So this one also could be controversial. We're going to stay on the night of the 2021 NFL draft, an actual loaded top 15 in this class. It was unreal. Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, bust at 2 and 3. We're going to talk about the 4th overall pick. Kyle Pitts. Was Kyle Pitts a generational tight end prospect? Yes. If you remember him at Florida, he was an absolute stud. You could put him out wide. You could put him at the tight end spot. He was going to be a dynamic receiver in this league. And for the 4th overall pick, he has now lived up to those expectations. He had a good rookie year, 68 catches, 1,000 yards. It's been going down ever since. He hasn't eclipsed 700 yards since his rookie season. Maybe he does that this year. He got his 5th-year option. I'm not even sure if he's going to be on the Atlanta Falcons after this year. It's just you got to look at the pass catchers that went after Pitts. Ja'Marr Chase at number 5. Ja'Marr Chase, who's maybe the best wide receiver in the NFL. You had Jalen Waddle go 6. You had Devontae Smith go go number 10. Or hey, maybe you didn't have to take a tight end at number 4. You could have taken Penei Sewell, arguably the best offensive lineman in the NFL, who went 7. J.C. Horn, who went 8. Patrick Surtain, a future DPOY winner, went number 9. Micah Parsons at 12, an elite pass rusher as well. Those are very hard to come by, but you selected Kyle Pitts just because of all the talent that went after Kyle Pitts. Basically, every single pick in that top 12 outside of Justin Fields would have been a home run selection over Kyle Pitts, and they just kind of went right into that tight end upside that didn't really work out for them. Kyle Pitts turned into a fine player in this league. He's a lot better than maybe like a Noah Fant pick in the first round, but the fact that it was the 4th overall pick, and it's just the talent that went after him, maybe the best corner in the league, best receiver in the league, the best tackle in the league, the best edge rusher in the league, all went after him. It's tough to look at in hindsight. All right, let's go to the 2023 draft. We haven't really talked about a lot of this draft yet. First one, Anthony Richardson of the Indianapolis Colts. Now, Anthony Richardson's career, in my opinion, far from over. I just saw his clip where he threw that deep ball in like week 1 or week 2 resurfaced from last year on my timeline. Electric. He still has all the tools in this league to being a good quarterback. He was such a dynamic runner and passer in about his first 15 games of his career. Yes, there were bad reads, bad progressions, did not make a ton of accurate throws. I know that, but he was such a raw prospect coming out of Florida. Not a lot of people thought he was going to go in the top 20, let alone the top 5. And when he was drafted, if you remember, everyone was like, you got to be patient. He should honestly sit his whole rookie year and maybe even more than that. And he was just kind of thrown out there, not ready for NFL defenses. I mean, thank God for Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen. They ended up taking a chance on Daniel Jones in the offseason, and he's also saved their jobs today. And I think Anthony Richardson can be a good quarterback in this league one day, but it just does not live up to what you gave up in draft capital, given that he was the 4th overall pick in this draft to go on and start about 15 games. For the Indianapolis Colts, that is just not a good return on investment. He had a 47% completion percentage in year number 2. He only played 4 games in his electric rookie season. Devon Witherspoon, 1 pick later. You had Paris Johnson go in that top 10. They weren't going to take Bijan Robinson, but Jalen Carter went in that top 10. They just wanted to take a quarterback, and they did. Just didn't work out. And yeah, I said I was not done with Las Vegas Raiders picks. We're going to talk about Tyree Wilson, who ended up being the 7th overall pick in the 2023 draft. He was the first edge rusher off the board because of his tools, because of his upside, not based solely off his college production at A&M and Texas Tech. Wilson has not been great this year, and it should be a little bit easy for him, right? Like, he's playing alongside Max Crosby on that defensive line. He never has to worry about a double team whatsoever. Maybe things could have been a little bit easier for him if the whole Christian Wilkins free agency signing worked out as a defensive tackle. But Wilson was the 105th graded edge rusher in his rookie year, 52nd last year, 86 this year. He can still be a fine edge rusher in this league. He is 25 years old. He had 3.5 sacks as a rookie, 4.5 last year, just 2 sacks so far this year. But when you talk about some of the guys that went after, you had Bijan Robinson, you had Jalen Carter, who could have been just such a massive upgrade for this team. Darnell Wright, Jahmyr Gibbs, Will McDonald would have been a better pick as well than Tyree Wilson for the Raiders so far. Just the Raiders have not been a good drafting team. Thank God they took Brock Bowers, because that really ended a terrible streak for this team. It's like even when they had on Max Crosby as a 4th rounder, they took Colleen Farrell with the 4th overall pick in the 2019 draft. Like, that would have made this video if we were going back another year. I'm going to take a lot of circumstances into these selections. So we are going to talk about the 18th overall pick in the 2022 draft, Treylon Burks to the Tennessee Titans, because they ended up trading away A.J. Brown to the Philadelphia Eagles for this pick, and Burks was supposed to replace A.J. Brown, and A.J. Brown had basically more receiving yards over like a 3-week stretch in 2023 than Burks ever did as a Tennessee Titan. He had 444 yards as a rookie in 2022, 221 yards in year number 2 in 2023. 34 yards last year for the Titans. He's currently on the Washington Commanders. And this is the move that basically got John Robinson fired from the Tennessee Titans, because A.J. Brown wanted a nice extension from the Tennessee Titans, and they weren't willing to pay him wide receiver 1 money. You know who did? The Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm not sure the Eagles win the 2024 Super Bowl without A.J. Brown on their roster. That was such a great move by Howie Roseman. So yeah, for Tennessee, trading away A.J. Brown, like a top 5 receiver in the league over the last few years, maybe not this year, but still in general, for Treylon Burks, who went on to have basically 699 yards for you across 3 years. We'll stay during the 2022 draft. So I talked about before, the Jets hit on both their first rounders in 2022, or even 3, right? Jermaine Johnson, Sauce Gardner, and Garrett Wilson, those 2 specifically. The Giants had 2 first rounders. I could talk about just both of them, honestly. I might do a double entry here, Evan Neal and Kayvon Thibodeau. Now, Kayvon Thibodeau has been miles better than Evan Neal in the NFL. It's just like whiffing on these two picks specifically, because I don't think Thibodeau is going to be on this team after this year. I know Evan Neal is not going to be on the roster either, when this could have set up the foundation around maybe Daniel Jones at the time. Drake London was one pick after Evan Neal. He could have been out there as a wide receiver one eventually for the New York Giants. Garrett Wilson, Charles Cross, an offensive lineman who worked out way more in the NFL than Evan Neal so far. Chris Olave, Jameson Williams. How about Kyle Hamilton? I know you probably didn't want to take a safety in the top 10. You had Xavier McKinney. Still, he could win DPOY this year in the NFL. You're probably never going to take Trent McDuffie that high, but it's just the Jets worked out with their two top 10 picks in the draft, and you whiffed on your two in Thibodeau, in Evan Neal. Like I said, Thibodeau turned out to be a better player. I just don't think he's going to be on the Giants next year with Burns and Abdul Carter as their premier edge rushers. And I know Evan Neal is not going to be on this roster since he's been drafted basically with the 7th overall pick in 2022. He's been arguably the worst offensive lineman in the NFL. So I praise the Eagles a little bit here, especially trading away a first rounder for AJ Brown. I'm not going to praise them here with the 21st pick in the 2020 NFL draft. This was not a great time for Howie Roseman. He was getting so much pressure because the Eagles never really captured the momentum they had after winning the Super Bowl in 2017. They selected Jalen Reagor, the wide receiver out of TCU, with that 21st pick in the 2020 NFL draft. You know who went one pick later? Justin Jefferson. He ended up going to the Minnesota Vikings. So yeah, you were going to take a receiver, and you probably had Justin Jefferson on your eye, on your radar, who just had a monster year for the LSU Tigers when they won the college football playoffs in 2020, and you selected the 5'11 receiver in Jalen Reagor, who would go on to spend about 2 years in Philadelphia. He had 695 yards and 64 catches across those 2 years, while Justin Jefferson ended up becoming one of the best receivers in the NFL. It's a miss by Howie Roseman, but hey, even the best are going to have some misses. Same criteria here, whiffing on the same position, one pick apart. We're going to talk about the 16th overall pick in the 2023 draft made by the Washington Commanders. Still can't believe they made this one. Me, not a draft expert whatsoever, sitting at home, said, why aren't you taking Christian Gonzalez, an absolute lockdown corner out of Oregon, and you selected Emmanuel Forbes out of Mississippi State? I don't get it whatsoever. Forbes ended up going 16. Christian Gonzalez ended up going 17. Hey, you could have taken Jackson Smith-Njigba, who ended up going at 20, but it's the fact that they took a corner when a corner went one pick later, and they just took the wrong one. But everybody sitting at home, me and you, thought they should have taken Christian Gonzalez. They took Emmanuel Forbes, who they ended up trading to LA in 2024. He's actually not been a bad starter for the Rams here in 2025, but not for the Commanders. So you took the wrong corner. A potential all-pro corner went one pick later, and he was off your team after a year and a half. Gotta make the video. Okay, so I'm not gonna talk about this pick, but I thought about it. He just had a monster game against the Atlanta Falcons. I was thinking about bringing up Bryce Young, the #1 overall pick in the 2023 draft, just because of what they gave up for Bryce Young. DJ Moore, the pick that ended up being Caleb Williams. Darnell Wright from that draft as well, a pick that ended up being Luther Burden. So a lot of draft capital and maybe a better quarterback in Caleb Williams went for Bryce Young. I wasn't gonna bring that one up, but I wanted to bring it up as an honorable mention. So let me know, do you think that one should have made this video? The last pick we're gonna talk about was in the 2024 draft. The only pick we're going to talk about in the 2024 draft, and that's going to be J.C. Latham of the Tennessee Titans. Now, this pick was made by the old regime. It's not worked out. This was the Ran Carthon pick. He was a late draft riser. Nobody really expected him to be a top 10 pick in the 2024 draft. The offensive lineman out of Alabama, and it's been an absolute disaster in Tennessee. He's played a little bit of guard, a little bit of tackle, and he's been pretty much bad at both of those positions. I don't know how much longer he's going to be as a staple offensive lineman for the Titans when he was supposed to be a big protector for Cam Ward, who eventually their next quarterback was going to be. And a lot of talent was off the board after J.C. Latham. I'm not going to sit here and say they should have taken Michael Penix or Bo Nix, but could they have taken Rome Odunze, who went one pick later? Could they have taken Olu Fashanu? Could they have taken Brock Bowers, who was the 13th overall pick, where a lot of people in that Titans front office wanted to take at the time? Could they have taken Elia Tuatu or Byron Murphy or Jared Verse? Quinion Mitchell, who was talked about a lot to go in the top 10 in that 2024 draft, who kind of fell on draft night as well. And they took maybe the only miss here in the top 10 of the 2024 draft, maybe outside of 9 in Minnesota. I thought about bringing up JJ McCarthy. I think he's just got too small of a sample size as a starting quarterback. But if I made this video in a year from now, he could definitely make that list when you take into account that they let Sam Darnold walk for JJ McCarthy to be the starter. So that is gonna be it for me. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, I'd appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Let me know down below, did I get these 15 right? Would you take any out? Would you put any in? Let me know down below. Subscribe for more content like this. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.